Hello everyone, great to have you here on the channel with Meteomark Weather. Welcome to the channel everyone. We're watching Hurricane Ernesto here. Is it still forecast to impact here parts of southeast Canada? We may be looking at this storm brushing Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, as well as Newfoundland. Any areas further west here, we'll explore that possibility as well. Definitely some major waves up and down the U.S. East Coast, and we will be looking at the 3rd and 4th week of August for some major tropical wave action that could develop into some tropical storms or maybe even some hurricanes. And looking out here into the Western Pacific, Typhoon Ampel will be brushing Japan very dangerously close to Tokyo here. Just what impacts could this be as this becomes a major typhoon? And we'll also be looking at your weekend forecast here, especially for the east. We could be looking at a very rainy weekend across much of the east, from the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, northeast New England, and even parts of the southeast, especially Florida. Let's get into it. All right, so let's quickly look at our three-dimensional satellite view of Ernesto. You can see how big it is. It's really impressive. Here's the southeast coast of the United States, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the Leeward Islands here. And Bermuda is right up here on the northeast corner of your screen. Let's just zoom in on it. This system actually ingested some dry air. That is some really great news. You can see it's kind of caught around the center of circulation here. That's kind of cutting it off for extreme rapid intensification. It's still strengthening, but not near as big as models originally predicted here, which is some great news. This will likely not become that Category 3 or 4 storm that was originally forecast. This is still on its way to Bermuda, though, and it still has a very large circulation associated with it. All right, so we're starting off here with the European model, and we'll transition over to the GFS momentarily. But here it is. Our system is going to be taking an aim right on Bermuda as we head late Friday night into Saturday. Thankfully, this has ingested that dry air. Still going to come up towards a very strong 2 here, so that's unfortunate for Bermuda, but thankfully it won't be the 3 or 4 that, some of the forecast models were predicting. But here it is, accelerating towards the northeast. You can see our steering currents here. You have high pressure, this retreating high towards the Azores. You got our East Coast trough kicking in. That's going to be pushing towards the East Coast here. Watch out for massive waves and rip current action here along the East Coast, especially as we get into this weekend. There it is, Bermuda by 5 a.m. on the 17th. That is essentially Saturday morning. So that's going to put you right on the eastern quadrant of this hurricane. Look at how it kind of stalls out for a bit. This is not good. This is 8 p.m. It's barely moved, but it is starting to move away from Bermuda by this point. But it's going to be a long haul for you, Bermuda, because at this point, the high is losing its influence here. It's moving east, and then we have this trough to the west. So that hasn't quite made it to the U.S. East Coast yet by this point. So it's going to slow down and start bending towards the north. And until it starts on Sunday evening, really accelerating towards the northeast here. And this is where we get into, here it's going to pass safely away from eastern Maine and Cape Cod here. So that's the good news. The bad news is here, Halifax, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland here. These areas, watch out. There's going to be some outer bands here. It's going to feel like an intense nor'easter as this thing converts over to extra tropical. And look at this. Yeah, this is by the 19th at 5 p.m. So you're getting into Monday here. So this is going to be past the weekend, which is good news. Let me just back this up. So for Nova Scotia, we start to get effects on the 19th. So this is Monday morning. And look how fast it's moving towards the northeast. It could possibly make landfall in Newfoundland, but by this point, it's going to be a massive comma head. So at that point, that doesn't even matter. It's going to be widespread. The wind field will be expanding as this thing unravels and becomes extra tropical. Look how fast it zooms across the North Atlantic by this point. This is going to become Europe's issue as we head later on into the week. You can see it approaching the British Isles as we head later in the week there, accelerating now. Look at that. It's forming some sort of massive low up there. Look at the intertropical convergence zone by the 22nd. So let me just back this up. Things look pretty quiet here through the 19th. You do have a little bit of a flare up here towards Jamaica. And look at the Gulf, clear as a bell until you get up towards Florida here. Now look at this intertropical convergence zone. As we head through the 20th, the 21st, look how things out here south of the Cape Verde Islands, and then look at the Caribbean and the Gulf just lighting up here, and you have this stalled frontal boundary. I think it's possible that we could have not just one, but maybe a couple of storms going on simultaneously here. Look at this. We got all these waves just lining up here. Some big, strong ones out here by the Cape Verde Islands. This is the 22nd. As we get into the 23rd, look at this. Yeah, well, it looks like we have something trying to recurve out here. Some more big waves. And look at the Gulf over here. Caribbean as well, Central America. Just filling in here. Tremendous tropical moisture as we continue to go through the 24th and into the 25th. Look at these just lining up out here, even off the U.S. East Coast. And don't forget, if you've made it this far and you love this video, you like it, smash that like button. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. Keeps our weather community active. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification so you're alerted when I come out with every one of these future weather updates. Let's continue. All right, so looking at our GFS model here, what is going on with this? Well, here it is. Very similar situation here as we go out here in time with our GFS model. You can see really showing up as it approaches Bermuda here. Pretty much the same scenario setting up. High pressure to the north towards the Azores and our trough kicking in across the U.S. East Coast. Now look at here, Bermuda. GFS has it going right over Bermuda just like the European model does here towards Saturday. So landfall, if you can even call it that, this is just going to be total Saturday, just a really miserable day here for Bermuda. Let's just put it that way. The good news is it's not going to be a 3 or a 4, but look at this, how that starts to accelerate. You got this low pressure, thankfully, along the U.S. East Coast. Unfortunately, we have to deal with a rainy weekend, which I'll tell you about here in a few moments here with our synoptic weather outlook. But look at this, the GFS taking this just to the west of guidance. This is towards the 19th at 2 p.m., so we're getting into Monday. So the GFS is slowing this down a bit. This is pretty interesting. 976 millibar low. Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island. You could be getting some of these outer bands, but look at this. Newfoundland actually has it making landfalls, 984 millibar low. So we'll have to continue to watch that. That's going to become Europe's issue. Look what happens, though, as we get on the tail end of this frontal boundary. We may have something try to develop here, according to the GFS, behind our system. Now, as we get into the rest of the tropics, we're looking at a pretty quiet week for the most part. Thankfully, the Northeast Caribbean Islands will have some time to dry out. But look at this. We have some massive tropical waves out here by the Cape Verde Islands that we'll have to continue to watch out here as well. But as we head through our key week here, after August 23rd, will we start to see some tremendous development here? Well, it looks like on the GFS, the Gulf of Mexico is heating up, and the Cape Verde season is heating up. Look at, we actually may have something way up here towards the Azores as well. So I think as we head through the last couple weeks here of August, things are going to uptick significantly. All right, if we want to look at our hurricane model here, our HWRF model, always great to take a look at this as well. Here it is bearing down on Bermuda, 962 millibars. Wow, that's pretty intense. Here it is on 2 a.m. on Saturday morning. The eye going right over Bermuda here. You can see it just literally right in the eastern quadrant, 970 millibars. So it does go through some weakening here, but look how huge it is. This is just one big massive system. And in these big systems, they do have a hard time intensifying rapidly because they have so much here. Now, look at the hurricane model is taking it a little bit left of guidance. This does have a tendency to happen as we get, further out here towards, if we look at the hour, this is hour 99. So I would not put too much into this going off to the left here too much. It's still a trend we'll have to watch here with the hurricane model because, that would bring some of the core of the strongest winds closer to Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island here, and of course, Newfoundland. All right, so our intensity scale of Ernesto, most of the models now keeping this as peaking at a category 2. There is one model up towards a 3, but it's looking less likely with all the dry air that it's sucked in. And of course, you have that frontal boundary to the north with increased wind shear as it approaches Bermuda. which is actually some good news for Bermuda. You're still going to get head on, but the good news is this is not going to be a Cat 3 or a Cat 4. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits here for our dry air analysis. Yeah, Ernesto actually ingested some dry air today. That has not been bearing very well for Ernesto. In fact, that is actually going to continue to decrease, the prospects of this becoming a Category 3 or 4. And of course, as we head into Saturday, it runs right into Bermuda. We still see it surrounded by dry air, and that trough across the U.S. East Coast is going to help push this initially towards the north and then towards the northeast. It looks like the GFS is really targeting Newfoundland here, just to the east, eastern part of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. Watch out as well, but look at that. That is on its way to Europe, the UK, the British Isles over here by Wednesday of next week. Yeah, Western Europe could be getting in on the act. And then we turn our attention to this big, massive blob. That looks like an intense one. And as I said before, the week of the last 2 weeks of August here, we're going to go bonkers here with these waves. So we may actually have a low pressure system initializing. It's also showing up here on the European model. And look at this moisture surge across the Gulf and the Caribbean. Now, kicking it back to the European model, a lot more dry air here with the European model. So this storm might actually ingest some more dry air, which would be wonderful. European model still taking it down to 965 millibars. That's nothing to turn your back on here. So it's still going to be a dangerous hurricane. Waves and rip currents up and down the U.S. East Coast. Keep that in mind if you're going to the beach. Might not be the best weekend. And then this is going to approach Southeast Canada, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland here, especially Newfoundland towards Tuesday morning there. Look at 984 millibar low. So 980 to 984, and then it accelerates towards Western Europe towards Thursday of next week. But look at this. Yeah, we're going to be watching something potentially try to develop out here. All right, so let's look at our rainfall totals. There's Ernesto off the northeast corner of your screen. But as we head in time, it's been dry here. Jamaica, you do start to get some showers this weekend. Cayman Islands, pretty dry. Jamaica, you could see upwards of 13 to 19 millimeters, nothing more than a tenth to a quarter of an inch. But look at Central America. You're not even really getting the rainfall until you get towards the third week of August. This is where we're really going to start to kick it up a notch. Look at here, the northern Bahamas as well. Any of these red areas, 60, 80 millimeters, you'll get up towards, say, 2.5 inches. So still a little bit dry here through the northwestern Caribbean. All right, so getting over towards our eastern Caribbean here. You're drying out, hopefully, here in the northeast Caribbean islands through the Lesser Antilles, the Leeward Islands, and Puerto Rico. But unfortunately, this weekend, you're going to see another tropical wave approach. And then next week, we really start to see tropical wave action. So you're going to add about 40 to 60 millimeters on top here. Thankfully, hopefully you can handle this. I know it's really difficult with all the flooding that you've had, but that'll put us up towards, say, about a half to 3/4, close to 1 inch in some of these areas. All right, so as we look at Japan here, the Western Pacific, yeah, this is looking very bad as far as our Typhoon Ampel here. So this is going to be literally over the next half a day to a day. This is going to, start to accelerate. This is a really powerful typhoon. It's going to be going up near 125 mile per hour, 155 mile per hour gusts. And as you watch this is 11 p.m. Watch how this goes into motion. This is 5 a.m. on Friday morning. Look how close it is to Chiba and Tokyo here. So it's very close. The good news is the core of the hurricane, the worst of it stays just offshore. So it's going to be really close. The wave action is going to be really intense, though, and you're still going to get some gusty winds and heavy rain as this passes to the northeast. Thankfully, this will start to accelerate, and look at that. That leaves in its wake another potential storm here. Here's the Philippines, there's Taiwan, and there it is, trying to develop. So we're going to have to watch this as well. We're just going to maybe line these storms up. That one heads towards South Korea towards the 20th, and then we start lining up our intertropical convergence zone out by the Marshall Islands here. And we're going to keep an eye on this because we could have some typhoons here as we go later on into August. As you can see, look at, there's some pretty big tropical waves, one right over the Philippines, one right over the Marshall Islands, and one just southeast here of Taiwan. And of course, Japan, your typhoon season has really kicked off with a bang here. So here it is, the 25th of August. Look at these just lining up out here. Severe weather for your Friday. It's mainly back across Kansas, but everywhere in this green area, watch out all the way through the Ohio River Valley. We could be watching for some strong thunderstorms, damaging wind, large hail. And that barrels to the east on Saturday, a very large area of a marginal risk here. Would not be surprised if we get a slight risk into parts of the Ohio Valley here into western Pennsylvania. All right, so over HRRR future radar here, we don't have too much going on. We have been dealing with some showers and thunderstorms in the northeast. Those will fall apart overnight, and our attention is going to turn to the west here. We're going to have some mesoscale convective systems coming down through the Mississippi and eventually the Tennessee River Valley. And watch up here into parts of Ohio and all the way back through Illinois. You could have some showers moving through with some embedded thunderstorms. Now, as we head through 5 a.m. on Friday, there it is through 9 a.m., we have an area of showers and thunderstorms pushing into eastern Ohio, eastern Kentucky, and West Virginia. That's going to continue eastward. And look at as we head throughout the day, we're going to see some of these spark here, some strong thunderstorms. You know, some big gully washers here, another batch here back to the west, and some cloudiness moving into western New York and western Pennsylvania, nothing more than a few clouds and maybe a few showers. Look at towards noon, though. These could be moving into Cleveland and then Pittsburgh by 2 p.m. Those are moving to the east, and they are weakening, and you can see down and through the Appalachians here, that continuing eastward. Here into central Pennsylvania as we head towards, this is Saturday morning. Look at this. This looks pretty interesting along the I-81 corridor. Unfortunately, this is what's going to bring you lots of rain, and it's going to really start to blossom here across the Susquehanna River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. Look what comes in from the west, though. Just barreling right through Cleveland around 5 p.m. on Saturday. You could have some of these storms become severe. Look at these bow segments just bowing out here. So watch out. I am a little concerned for severe weather as well, and then that turns into a heavy rain threat across the northeast. All right, picking up where our future radar left off. Yeah, this gets us into the weekend here, and unfortunately, there is that upper level low. Ernesto's passing safely off the U.S. East Coast. That's the good news, but there's going to be a lot of wave action up and down the U.S. East Coast. Let me include Florida there. There we go. So watch this as I put this into motion as we get through the 17th into the 18th. Ugh, look at this. This low just cuts off across the eastern Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and into the northeast and New England. Look at it, even taps into some tropical moisture as we get into later Saturday and Sunday. So we're going to have these big, strong southerly winds with lots of bands of tropical moisture. And on the backside of it, it's going to feel a little bit more like fall with those bands of rain pivoting to the southeast here. And then as we head into the 19th here, it's just kickoff next week. We continue with those rains. Thankfully, they will start to pull away here, and that is some great news. All right, so looking at our rainfall totals here on the European model, as we head through the weekend, I told you it was going to be awful across the east. Let's just stop it here on Monday morning. Let's get that out of the way. Thank you. And as we look from southeast Canada, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, up into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, especially western and southern New England here, even parts of the Southeast here, we're looking at anywhere from 3/4 to 1.5 inches, and some of these areas could be getting upwards of 1 inch to 2 inches here pretty easily. And look at that as we just continue in time all the way through next week. You can see where the rainfall really starts to focus itself here across Florida and parts of the Gulf Coast and just up and down the Carolina coast here. All right, so the smoke situation, yeah, it's just, I don't know. This is terrible. It's not looking very good. Let's get the latest run here. That'll help. And look at that. Across the northern plains, south central Canada here, even over here into southern, look at this, Quebec over here. Even trailing a little bit down into New England. That's why you've seen some hazy days at times. Look at that. Yeah, so unfortunately, these wildfires are just going to continue to create smoke. They're not as bad as last year, but this is still not good. And if we take a look at the vertically integrated smoke further up in the atmosphere, look at this. That's giving those milky white skies here across parts of New York, New England here, the northern plains. Look at Quebec up here, just inundated. As we just go through Saturday here, you can see, look at, there's a band of smoke. Let's get that out of the way. Coming through the Ohio Valley here, so you can see where they're coming from. Lots of fires up here in the west central Canada. This is not good news. All right, Canada, can we get you some rain? Well, let's see. As we head through, say, Friday into Saturday, southern Ontario and southern British Columbia and Alberta, those are going to be the areas we're going to watch for some potential precipitation rainfall here. So it's not going to be too terribly heavy. Northern parts of Quebec, way up here towards Hudson Bay as well. But there it is. Let's just back that up just a tad. We have this low pressure system attached to an upper level low down here towards southern Ontario, and you can see some heavier embedded showers and thunderstorms across southern Ontario and Quebec as we head on into the weekend, into early next week. You can see that surge of moisture there, and we are also going to be watching, all eyes are going to be on Ernesto here. Ernesto will be affecting, it looks like, parts of Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, maybe some effects here in southern New Brunswick, but it's getting to be unlikely. And Newfoundland here. Yeah, this is going to be a thing. Let's just zoom in because this is where most of your weather is going to be here into southeastern Canada. Here is Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland. Look at this. Let's just put this into motion. Let's zoom down just a tad. Here is Ernesto passing. The core of the worst of it passes just southeast of Nova Scotia on the 19th. So this is actually getting into Monday. So this storm has slowed down a bit. It's not going to be really a weekend storm, which is some great news. But then towards Newfoundland here, towards the 19th at 8 p.m., could it make landfall here? Well, it doesn't really matter at this point because it's an extratropical hurricane at this point. It kind of does because, you know, the core. But at this point, it will look more like a comma head rather than a symmetrical hurricane. But it will cause some serious problems here, especially for southeastern Newfoundland here. Look at this, though. Much of Canada is just basking in dryness, and that's not the best thing here. So southeast Canada is getting all the rain here. As we continue through the third week of August, you can see most of these systems are forced up and over this ridge of high pressure across southeast Canada. Thankfully, you'll be drying out here in parts of areas that were affected by not only the low pressure for the weekend, but Ernesto. And then you see these systems being forced up towards Hudson Bay. We really do need the rain further south, but it looks like it's a hard bargain until we get to about the 25th. Look at this. Ontario really starts to get a little bit of a trough here, moving through with some showers and thunder showers. So for Canada here, southeast Canada is where the lion's share of the rainfall is actually going to be. Of course, you know, as we head through the 25th of August, there it is, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island. That's where you'll easily be getting 60, maybe as much as 100, 110 millimeters of rain. You know, a solid 2.5 to 5 inches. Now look at here into southern Ontario and Quebec. That's another bullseye. This weekend and early next week, especially, you'll be getting upwards of 60 to maybe up to 90 millimeters, getting upwards of about 2 to 3.5 inches. And then actually some beneficial rains out here into parts of the western provinces as well. And before we continue, don't go anywhere. I got plenty more weather for you. Take a look at these awesome maps from my affiliate.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MediaMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
All right, so your temperatures as we head through Friday, yeah, they're going to be on the increase across the east. We even have a 90 there near Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. 80s here in the Ohio Valley, 70s in northern New England, but look at Texas boiling into the 100s as we head into Saturday. Look at this cooler shot of air. A lot of this is with the clouds and the precipitation. Upper 70s to right around 80. And south of the Mason-Dixon line, that's where you quickly get towards 90 into Sunday. Look at that cooler air heading all the way down the Appalachians here, especially the western spine of the Appalachians. 70s coming down here. So, yeah, we're looking at a much cooler week next week across much of the east. Look at, we actually pushed that 90-degree line pretty far south here. That is pretty interesting. Into Tuesday, look at this. Wow, this is kind of crazy. We haven't seen these kind of temperatures in quite some time, all the way southward here. Even to parts of North Carolina, you're getting down into the low to mid 80s here. That is pretty intense. The extended outlook from our hometown viewers, bringing to the Scranton, Upper Susquehanna, River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. The only day I can say that's nice here is Friday. If you have it off, great. It will be a little bit on the warm side. Upper 80s, some areas, those warmer valleys near 90. But look at this. Saturday and Sunday, that upper level low combines with some tropical moisture. It's just going to be an awful weekend. Look at this. Saturday and Sunday, we could be looking at a total of half to 3/4 of an inch both days. So that could put us close to, an inch to an inch and a half by the time the weekend's over. So just pretty much 80 to 100% chance of rain the entire weekend. That'll hold the temperatures down into the 70s. Monday, we still have showers and thunderstorms hanging over, but we finally start to clear it out for Tuesday and Wednesday. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of Meteor Mark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at Meteor Mark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteorMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.